Hello and welcome to Project Home DIY. This month we have the cotton mason jar box. You're going to be building a wooden box and then painting mason jars and filling the centerpiece with cotton sprigs. I love these things and I had to get my hands on them and use them in a project we did, so I'm glad we do that this month. So let's get started. Everything you're going to receive will be in your kit. Again, if you are a first-time subscriber, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name's Christine, the curator of Project Home DIY and owner of Mason Creations, which is the mastermind, I guess, behind the Project Home DIY. So if you're a first-time subscriber, you will receive in your kit the hot glue gun, sanding block, and paintbrush. Also get glue sticks, and when we have projects that we use glue with a lot, I will send glue sticks in the boxes so you'll have refills. So make sure that you do wash and keep your paintbrush for each time, because we will be using the same one. You won't get a paintbrush in your box every time. You won't get a hot glue gun, which you probably don't need a hot glue gun every single time. Most everything will be in the box except for some household items that you will have at home. So this month you're going to need a serrated steak knife, a hammer, and a screwdriver, or and a Phillips screwdriver, or a drill. Either one will work, whatever you would like, and the drill would be easier to use if you're familiar with those. So let's go ahead and get started. Here will be the wooden box, and you're going to see that it is nice and rustic old wood, because it's the rusticer, the dirtier the wood is, the better the wood grain will show through once it's painted and sanded. You'll love the finished product. So you're going to get a stack of wood, 5 pieces just like this, and our first thing we have to do is build the box. You are so spoiled and so lucky because they are pre-drilled. So there are holes that show you exactly where you're going to put your nails. So it's going to make it really easy. And also, all the pieces are lettered, so you will know exactly which piece goes to which side. So you can see on here there's A, B, C, and D. So go ahead and match up all of the ends. So A goes to A, just like that, okay? And everything else goes, so just set it all out just like that. You want to put letter to letter. So it'll go just like that. We'll go ahead and put on the side pieces first, but to ensure that we have a good hold, I included wood glue in your box this month, and you'll have plenty of this to use for future projects. There'll be lots left over, and I think you'll really enjoy starting to get a supply of your own materials as well, which is kind of cool. So the outside pieces for on our box go on the outside. They don't go on top, they go on the outside, okay? So we keep that centerpiece as wide as we can because our mason jars go right in there. So take your A and A, and I would put a glue line right there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Don't use too much. Wood glue is really good stuff, and it works very well. So I'm going to set that there. And they don't have to be exact, but all this was pre-drilled for you, so the nails should go in fairly easy. This might be a little bit of a balancing trick, but if you grab your nail and your hammer, stick it right in that hole, and it's just a little bit of work. Again, there's going to be 3 nails on each side, and 2 or 4 on the ends, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and nail this. It's going to be a little bit loud. Okay, that nail is nice and flush, nice and sunk in there. I'm going to do the end. And you kind of just wrap your fingers all the way around the whole thing so you can make sure that's what's called flush right there. This piece and this piece match up nice and smooth. We want to make sure that that is definitely taken care of. All right, so I have one side of my box put together. And I'm going to work on the next. So I'm going to match B to letter B in here. Put my string of glue. And don't worry too much about your nail heads. If by any chance you bend one over, that is not a big deal. See how that one got a little bit bent over? Not a problem at all. Won't wreck your project in the end. And keep in mind, we will be painting over these, so you will cover up those nails, but also they add a good fun touch to them. So make sure to match up your letters again for the end caps. And that's only because, again, they were pre-drilled, so those holes should fit pretty exact. And it'll make it a lot easier for you to hammer in there. On this part, make sure that your boards aren't caving in right here. So you definitely want to make sure these are flush along the sides. So I suggest making one side really nice and flush. Go ahead and starting with that. You're doing 2 holes right there and there, and 2 holes there and there. So just along the sides. And again, let's put our wood glue in there. Okay, I'm not going to worry about pulling that apart so it's not caved in a little bit right here just yet. I'm going to get this side fastened and then I'll worry about pulling that. I was lucky on that one. I matched the holes exactly up and it even is sunk a tiny bit, so it won't take much. Okay, so here I'm going to worry a little bit more about making this flush. So I'm going to pull it away with my thumb. You can kind of see that and straighten this bottom piece up. Stick my nail in. And wipe off any excess glue that you do see. Won't hurt anything if it's there though. Okay, and my last nail. End pieces went in awesome. So you can see that that's nice and square. Thanks to my husband's wonderful cutting abilities, he makes everything so perfect for us to work with. All right, the end piece, same thing. We'll go ahead and put our glue. Okay, so we got our box built. Looks awesome, nice and square. Our mason jars will fit right in there. And then our cotton blossoms, my favorite part. Okay, this is totally up to you how you want to paint, if you want to paint the inside of the box or not. You do not have to. You can't really see much of it because of the mason jars and the stuff that you decide to put in there. So don't worry too much about it, or the bottom. That's totally up to you. So keep that in mind when you're painting away. For this, I sent you 2 colors of paint. I had in mind you do a white box and you accent with 2 chalk painted mason jars in this minty green sagey color. Totally up to you. You can vary it up. You can take a paint from a previous project and do a different color box. I know we've had some dark browns in there, some other colors, some blues. So if you want to use a different color, you are more than welcome to use a different color. I would love to see all the variations when we get there. But my idea of it was a ivory colored box. The easiest way, this wood is dry, so it's going to take a lot of paint. And the easiest way to get the paint out is just to squirt it right on there. Go ahead and layer it on there. Here's your trusty paintbrush. and cover it up. So the grainy ends of the wood works really well to dab the paint right in there. And just a trick, as you can see, I'm not wearing paint clothes. I usually don't wear paint clothes, and I do paint every day of my life pretty much. Is when you're painting, don't fling the brush towards you, because then you're gonna have a bunch of little specks and flecks of paint everywhere. So just fling it away from you, and that's what really causes all the paint to be everywhere, is the flinging. You don't have to have it all fully covered at all. So I'm gonna leave like this piece of the wood exposed, because it'll just take less work for me in the end when I want to sand all that off. So here I just squirt the paint on and paint. Okay, all done painting. So as you can see, it's fully covered. Plenty of paint left in the bottle. If you do decide to paint the bottom or the inside, you're more than welcome to. You totally can. So there's the finished piece painted. I'm gonna go put it in the dryer, and I'll be right back, and we will do paint mason jars. Okay, so that's my little trick. I do have a small space heater that I use for projects, and I turn on the heat, and it dries up the paint in no time. So like, honestly, that could be dry in about 5 minutes, which is super awesome, and it really helps get your projects going. So if you need that, keep that in mind, that that is a good way to dry your projects. All right, you have 2 brand new mason jars. We don't like the look of new, let's make them look old. So you're going to be using chalk paint, and you'll notice if you pick up your 2 bottles of paint, the chalk paint is significantly heavier. There's sediment pigments in chalk paint that make it a little gritty, so that's kind of where it gets its name, chalk paint. It doesn't necessarily mean that it can be used with chalk, like into a chalkboard, but it sure can be, because it is gritty, just like a chalkboard kind of feels. There's a big fad with chalk paint right now. I personally, out of the, 15,000 custom home decor products we've made for people, I don't use chalk paint. I actually just use flat latex paint, and that's what I use for everything. Chalk paint, I chose to use it on the mason jars this month because it really does give a thick, 1-coat completed finish. So it does do its job in that way. Super easy to paint with, does a nice job covering. So that's why I chose to use that for this month's project. And also just to give you a taste of what chalk paint's like. I want you to be able to try new products, see them, see what they're like, and know why they're so popular and out there. So let's open our mason jars. They kind of pop, yeah, they pop sometimes. We're in really high elevation here, so ours always pop. So to paint mason jars, it's pretty easy. Just go ahead and stick your hand right in there. If you don't like squirting the paints right on this, you can have a paper plate next to you and squirt the paints on that, whatever you prefer. But just squirt your jar, cover your jar in paint. And it's okay if you do see brush strokes. That's not the end of the world with painted mason jars. But with everything I paint, I kind of like to put I like to get it all covered and then go back over and smooth it out and make it nicer. I'm gonna put just a tad more paint on here. Okay, so that one's done. Set my paintbrush down and I just slip my hand out the bottom and then I'll go set this down, and I'm actually set it in front of the heater again, just because that heater cures it and kind of bakes it on nicely. So I'll be right back. Okay, and now I'll paint the second one. Okay, don't forget to rinse your brush after you're done because you'll need it on future projects. So make sure you rinse that, and we'll take a little bit of a dry break so both the items can finish drying. Okay, I'm back and I brought in our dried items. They're all nice and dried. The box is finished. All the nails still look good. The jars are dry. Now we're going to do my favorite part of everything, and that's the sanding. So on this box, we're going to sand everything, and you sand as much as you want. You can't overdo it, really. If you do feel like you overdid it, you can take your white paint again and finish or put more over that one spot that you think. And we're going to sand on the jars to make them look a little old. This is just a way to bring out a unique look into each piece. So if you happen to have a electric orbital sander, you are more than welcome to use that on these. If not, get some elbow grease and let's get to sanding. So you'll notice when things are painted, the grain of the wood becomes a lot rougher, and that happens just because the moisture in the paint pulls the grain up, so it gets really rough. But it provides us a good surface to sand, and those rougher areas will show through the fastest because they're raised, and you're going to sand that part off the most. So I'm going to sand and really focus on the sides and the top edge and everywhere else. Okay, so I got the box all nice and sanded. You can see the grain really showed up like right through here. These are what's called circular sawn. So think of a circular saw and it saws through the board, so you're gonna get like that sawn look to them. And those are the pieces of grain that show up the most. Once you sand, it is much smoother, much nicer to the touch, so you're not gonna hurt yourself. So there is sanded, just a quick inside to get the grain a little bit down in there. But truly, the rusticier it looks, like the better it really does look, I think. That's my personal favorite. So don't be scared to sand away at all. Okay, so I'm gonna set that to the side. And on the jars, again, just put them in your hand. The best part to show through is, of course, the wording. So take your sandpaper again, and you just sand away on that, and it starts showing up. It like sands away just the words. I like that look, and I like to sand along the edges and around the top. see, the more I sand, the more it wears off right there. So you can see how durable chalk paint really is. I mean, this is over glass, and you're sanding, and it really does stay. So that's a nice thing about it. That's why it's so great for furniture, especially like cabinets and stuff that are constantly being touched. That works really well. So there is a jar that's sanded. Again, this is something you can't really overdo. If you feel like you did overdo it, just use the your paint and touch up again in those spots, okay? My jars are fitting a little tight, and I think it's because of the wording. So you can move them whichever way you would like in there. And you will scratch it off the sides like I just did, but that's okay with me. I don't mind how it looks. I won't be putting them in and out very often. I'm going to wait to put them in until the end because we're going to put the jute, which is this twine, around the tops. There's sort of a few little touch steps left. And on this one, where it did scratch the side, I am going to put just a little more paint just to touch that up. Just because I'd like that covered. But not much, just a tiny bit. Okay, so there's my jars, all nice and sanded. I'm going to set those to the side in the box. Okay, so now on your box, we have to put the little brass handles. You do not have to use these, of course. You can, you don't have to. They do kind of just add another little element to the box. Let's see, so just kind of center them where they go. Make sure there's enough room for your hands to go under. You don't put them all the way down here. Center them where they go. And again, you're using a little bit of elbow grease. So that one's in there, and then I'm just gonna make it straight. And these little brown screws are what the handles are used for. Okay, so there's one. Happy with that. Okay, wipe my hands off. I'm a little covered in sawdust or dust in the jars. Nobody said that we don't make a mess. I never promised that. That's the best part of it all. Okay, handles are on the box. I'm loving it. Love the look. I love the various metals. I like the screws. If you don't like the exposed screws once you paint or once you sanded, paint over them again if you don't like that look. It's all totally up to you. I'm going to take the jar and the jute. Yours will come in this. I just have a little left over from a previous project. Yours comes in a spool like this. So take your jute, and you're going to need your hot glue gun too. So, okay. So with the jute, we're just gonna wrap it around the top of the jar just to give it a little bit fancier vibe. So I'm gonna put a dab of hot glue on the back side of the jar. I'm gonna take my jute again, if you've watched my videos before, lick your finger before you touch the hot glue. And it kind of cools it down. Works good. See how I kind of crisscross that in the front? Just to give it a little, whatever, look, different look. So you use however much you want. And I ran every piece right back through that hot glue in the back. So it is stuck. And then just cut off the excess. And I would go ahead and put a little more hot glue over the top. Again, lick your finger and it won't stick to you. And you can pat it down nicely and it dries clear too. That's another bonus of getting that down there. So you can kind of move the strings, like once if you see a different way you want to make them look. So there's the first jar. You know, hot glue gun strings like make me crazy. And one way to avoid that is to make sure that when you use the hot glue, I'm gonna have a mess over here. Okay, when you use the hot glue, like scrape your tip off the edge. Like once you put glue down, scrape your tip off the edge and it'll get rid of that string. That like strings all over my pieces of my crafts make me crazy, so I like to clean that up. So there's the second jar. So you're done with your jute. You'll probably have some left over in your spool, but you can use it on another project, or you can even wrap it around, like around the outside of the box. Down around here. If you like and want that look, you can tie a bow, tie a ribbon, whatever you would like to do. You can add that. So now, I've seen a lot of these table boxes, and I've actually done a lot of sip and build classes, and we've built these table boxes, but I kind of got sick of the 3 jars and I wanted something different. So for you guys, this is all in my head. I haven't put this project together yet, but I thought I love cotton blossoms. I love these colors. I love the old stuff. Let's put it all together in a project. So that's what you got here. And instead of putting a 3rd jar in the center, we're going to build a cotton blossom sprig with the foam block and your cotton blossoms. So in your box, you will receive a big long cotton blossom like this guy. And you're going to cut it apart, whether it breaks your heart or not, I'm sorry. But you're going to want each of these sprigs off of it. So you can unravel it and get those pieces out of there. And you've also received 5 little filler pieces as well. Okay, so your goal is to kind of make a big bushel in the center of this box using this foam block that'll go between your 2 jars. This foam block needs to be cut just a little bit so it fits in your box just a little bit better. That's where the serrated knife comes into play. And I suggest there's 2 directions. I would go with the wider one and make it fit right in that center. So just kind of eyeball it, and then you're just gonna saw off part of that block, because we won't need all of it to fit right in there. And that guy fits to a T. And you may, I think I'm going to cut it just a little bit more so it sinks. It's flush right now, but I think I want it to sink in a little further. So I'm going to cut the other direction. Because I kind of want that hidden. I don't want it to be seen. Okay. Just sticking these little pieces in here to make it stay in there a little harder. Okay, so you want your foam block to be secure in there. If you have to hot glue it in the bottom, hot glue it, won't hurt it. Get it down in there. That will work just fine. Look, styrofoam everywhere. Okay, so it's in there. And then you're just gonna take your little sprigs, and I actually didn't have one of these to work with, so yours are gonna be much more full and fancier looking than mine. But I just have a few pieces that I made and will be using for this. So I'm just gonna stick them in. Okay, so there's the little sprigs in there. You can balance them however you need, remove them, put them in there. If you don't like the look of that foam block, you can paint it, but you guys have a lot more cotton sprigs in your, between this piece and the 5 little guys, I think you'll have a lot more coverage than I have. But there's that guy. And the last finishing touch. Stick those in there. And we are all finished. So there is your month of August Project Home DIYs project.